this is my portfolio assignment submission. So what I did was I mainly focused on creating the fog and this, how to stylize the fog how I want it based on this image. And learning more about exponential height fog and volumetric fog, etc. So right now I added an exponential height fog into my scene, and I made this true. Volumetric fog is true. Scattering distribution value was the only value I changed in all of these, because scattering distribution tells the engine how we want to scatter these fog particles. So if the value increases, more particles are scattered at the top and less at the bottom. But if this value decreases, less are scattered at the top and more at the bottom. And so I wanted some scattering happening at the top, but I also wanted there to be fog at the bottom. So that's why it's at 0.38 right now. I didn't change many of these values except for my fog height fall off, because I wanted the there to be fog at the bottom and not just at the top. And then another thing I did was I added a skybox with an HDRI image, and I give that to my skylight. So there is skylight, which is static. I could give stationary, but stationary kind of made my whole scene brighter, and it basically lights your whole world based on volumetric light map samples. But I wanted some bake lighting to be there, so I made this static. But my directional light, on the other hand, was stationary, because I wanted global illumination happening in my scene. And because of these directional light, what happens is it helps us to create this kind of fog look that we want. And if you have a stationary light and you have stationary objects, your diffuse or your direct diffuse is going to be real time. And I wanted that real time effect. And your indirect diffuse is going to be based off of the volumetric light map scattered around. So a key note to point out is that a stationary actor and a stationary object, stationary actor and a stationary light will always give you a real-time direct diffuse, a indirect diffuse based on the volumetric light maps, and shadows are always real-time. So I wanted real-time shadows in my scene, and I did not want to bake all these shadows in, because when I bake the shadows, all these trees have leaves, and these leaves do not give a very distinct shadowing effect. They kind of blur together. And another thing I had to make sure was my light map settings. If I go to optimize view modes and light map density, I had to make sure that my areas were all dense enough for shadowing to occur. So one thing I noticed was this area, this plane, was completely blue, and blue is what we don't want, because blue means your light maps are too high of a scale, like the resolution is too low, so your lighting won't be high enough. So I had to make this into I think a 4K texture or something. No, it's 2K. I had to make this into a 2K texture, texture light map, because I was getting very, very blurry shadows. So I had to fix that. I kept my, where is it? Spotlights as both of them as movable, and the only reason I did so was because I didn't want any baked lighting happening from these fog lights. I just wanted everything to be real time, and I didn't want random shadowing or stuff like that occurring from these. I didn't want it to cast shadows either, so I removed cast shadows from both of them. This is only for visual purposes, and I did not want it to affect my scene in any other way other than the fog. I added this one spotlight right over here, and this spotlight is giving these highlights to this tree, because if you look at my reference, there are highlights happening on the tree. So based on that, and what I did was I went to channel and I set channel as 2, and all of these trees have their channel set as 2. So only these trees are being affected by this spotlight, and nothing else in the scene is being affected by this spotlight. If I go to spotlight 4, spotlight 4 is used to light up my butterfly, and what I did is I set it to channel 1, and so it does not affect the tree, it only affects this butterfly, because the butterfly is also channel 1. And another thing that I did was I added a reflection capture. So my reflection capture kind of bumped up some of the shadows in the scene and helped create a better reflectivity. because what it basically does is it takes kind of like a screenshot of the entire environment and places it onto any object with specific reflectivity, or brightens, or does, based on what material it is, it gives a specific value. I mean, gives that material like an overview of an image of the environment onto it. So if you had a metal, like for instance, if you had a metal and you placed this reflection capture, it would kind of um, calculate where that thing is and how it would reflect the environment. So you would see the environment in that metal because of the reflection sphere capture. That's kind of what it does. Um, Over here in my reflection sphere capture, I've set the brightness to 0.2 because I didn't want it too bright. Because if I increase this value, it kind of like makes this dirt seem like sand, which I didn't want it. Right now you can see with it turned off, it's very, like, the dirt's just very dark, kind of blends together. But if I increase it, it kind of brightens up the pathway. You can see it clearer now. And I've added these butterflies, got them online, but I took them into Maya and I changed the way the wings were placed and the antennas and stuff like that. So this is my submission for these portfolio assignment.